All right, guys, and I have a special guest here today for the podcast, George Strombolis from Orange County, California. Actually born in Canada, lived in New York City. Now he's in California, and George is an international business person. Right now, he's focusing on manufacturing all across the world, but he's done so many different ventures in real estate, media, TV production, you name it. So we're going to jump right into it, George. First, thank you for being on the podcast today, man. And I'm so glad we finally got connected and we're getting this rolling, man.
Absolutely. Very, very excited. And thank you for the intro and just ready to jump into it.
Awesome, man. Awesome, George. So let's start right from the beginning. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, right? I feel like us entrepreneurs are wired differently. And I feel like we've kind of been like that since day one. So what got you on the path to business and entrepreneurship?
Sure. So I born and raised in Canada to immigrant parents from Greece. And when you're an immigrant in a foreign country, right, you can't just go and work, you start your own businesses, right? So there's the stereotypical professions that certain cultures gravitate to. I can speak to it about my people. So being Greek background, it was always the restaurant industry. So my parents immediately into the restaurant industry. I grew up in the restaurant industry from 4 years old. I remember by 5, 6, I remember in the back chopping lettuce, prepping French fries, helping the restaurant industry. So at a young age, I was learning, my sister and myself, we were learning about the economics of bacon and buying produce better and doing all this stuff. And it was the ultimate business class, business study program from a young age that before I even got into high school, university, and studying business administration and marketing, I was already exposed to it on a small mom and pop scale. And I was wired at that program to know that either you work your ass off, or you're not going to eat. So that's essentially where it came from. And seeing my parents with no education, didn't know the language locally, people making fun about the food you eat and all this stuff, even growing up in Canada, just kind of wired me to go on that path.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So that it's kind of like that. They call it the immigrant edge, right? That fire, that hustle that is so important, man, to business entrepreneurship.
So,
you can't, I feel like you can't. It's hard to teach, but obviously you got that from. It sounds like you got that from watching your parents and growing up in the restaurant business. So so you're in, your parents are in the restaurant business, you're growing up with that type of mindset, mentality, after, throughout your school years, did you know, hey, after I graduate high school, I'm going to jump into business? What was kind of the mindset and the plan after that?
Yeah. So great question. In high school, like I remember like business classes, we had to design like a business. So I was coming from the restaurant industry. I'm like, oh, let me design my own nightclub and this and that. So it was always, I wanted to do my own thing, but then I was always attracted to big industry, large corporation, just seeing that. So one of my first internships in university was for the European Union government agency. So I was living in Greece while doing my program, and I was exposed to the government side of it and working with local hotel owners who wanted to expand and tap into certain funds from the European Union. So at that point, I started realizing I like the smaller hustle, and I was helping them develop business plans to try to get funding from a government agency. So the big industry kind of left my aspirations, and then I started wanting to do my own thing. So that's kind of where it started, like really that exposure. And I remember I was interviewing at the time before returning back to Canada with some corporations for a marketing position. And I was just looking at it on what they would be paying me coming out of the box and, where I would have to go progression wise. And I was it didn't appeal to me at that point. So that's when I went back, regrouped, and then started, my first job out of university was in Ireland. So I moved to Ireland for 2 years, which exposed me to the Irish culture, which is amazing, right? How witty they are, the whole British Irish wit, it's on another level, and they'll run circles around us on, right, did they just make fun of me, or was that a joke together? And and by the time you leave, you're like, no, they were making fun of me, but I didn't. Like, it's just amazing. So that was my first entry into that. I don't know if that really answers what you were saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like you kind of were, kind of seeking out some different things, getting some different experiences. Did you, I mean, because look, you do international business. That's not an everyday thing. So it's really what attracted me to you at first. When I saw your page, I was like, wow, this is really freaking cool. I mean, not only this guy's doing real estate, he's doing it all across the world, which is super impressive. I mean, did you always know that you wanted to be kind of international, or is that just something that just kind of happened organically?
Yeah, I remember. So 1994 was the World Cup in the United States. They were hosting it here, and I was 13 years old. I'm born in 81. And even then at 13, my dad, who's hard worker, restaurant, he ended up buying us 4 tickets to drive from Canada to go to Foxborough Stadium in Boston to watch Greece play Nigeria. It was the first time Greece ever qualified. So we drove 9 hours, we go there. And even going there internationally, coming back to the international, I was like, all right, I got to sell something at the game. So I started looking over in China, and this is pre Alibaba, pre, mainstream internet. And I found a supplier of those electric fans that have a mist. And I'm like, oh, this is great, summertime. And I'm looking at container quantities at 13, 14 years old. And if I import them, and what are the tariffs? And I'm doing all this at 13 in preparation to go to the World Cup. And by the time, like, timelines and whatever, it didn't work out. But at that point, like, I was already thinking internationally, right? I would go to Greece every summer with my sister, and we would stay there for 2 months at a time. We'd be meeting people. So that was that. So when I launched my current company with my business partner, it was a very simple model. It was manufacturing in Asia, because that was our background, and selling to American companies here. Very standard. And as we started getting into it, and we had non-competes with our previous company, we started looking at other markets, other types of products, not just lighting. Can we start doing interiors? And we were already working with national accounts. And then we're like, all right, well, where's the best place to produce furniture? Vietnam, Thailand. Let's get on a plane. And we're going there, and we're literally going to factories, introducing ourselves, cold calling, trying to develop relationships together. And that was kind of our entry into this. And we just looked at it. And eventually from the States, the world just became, you could be anywhere in the world within 17-hour flight. Like, think about that. Think about that. Like 17 hours. Right now, if I drove 17 hours, I could get to 3 more states. Like, you can fly anywhere in the world. So that's the easy thing. The world's so connected today. The next thing is like the geopolitical, what's going on, the tariffs, all this stuff. And if you can navigate that, and it's so easy with the internet nowadays and finding like-minded people, right? We met through connecting and saying that, well, you know what? Is there another Blake or another George in Vietnam that I could try to partner with? What about Malaysia? What about this market? And eventually the first few years of the business was setting up these strategic markets. And right now my business is in over 30 countries around the world. We have product installed in 30 countries around the world. And right now we're opening our office in Athens. I actually fly to Athens, Greece in 2 days. So that's going to be our European office. We're building a new office in Canada. And then we have one coming up in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So it's just keeping that momentum going, and then finding the formula and applying it locally.
That's freaking phenomenal. And it's a great excuse to travel.
Blake, there's no better place. And I'll tell you something. So pre-COVID, because COVID kind of threw everything up, and not to date this episode, but pre-COVID, I was flying 300,000 miles a year.
Wow.
Which is, I think it's 27,000 miles is the circumference of the planet. So do the math, 9 or 10 times around the world. And in 300,000 miles a year, I only had something like 22 or 24 hotel nights, which is insane. So like the Marriott, I was checking in December because I'm doing red eyes everywhere. Like I literally would leave from LA to New York on a red eye there and back in 23 hours because I have young babies at home. And I didn't want to be that guy who's traveling in a way.
Right.
Once a month, I'm flying to Shanghai and back in 48 hours.
Wow.
India and back. So, and there's no better place to be in the air. You step in, that's your 12, 14, 15 hours of watch a movie, catch up on some work, disconnect from this shit that we're
absolutely,
to, you know?
Yep.
So there's no better place to be up in the air, you know?
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And this is really, really cool. Cause like I said, it's not an everyday thing to have business in 30 different countries. So obviously it's an awesome thing to do, but what are the challenges, right? I mean, there obviously has to be a lot of, hurdles, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. What are the biggest challenges that you've seen throughout the process of building your company?
Yeah. So the first thing is the foundation at home. Whether you're, single, in a relationship, engaged, married, divorced, whatever it is, if you don't have a foundation or support network at home, and not physically just at your home, it's like, whether it's your parents, grandparents, you always need that support of just, hey, you're on the right track or you're not, right? So
Right.
you got to filter the noise. So for me at the time when I started, my girlfriend already knew I was like this. So she came into this world and she knew this is what it was. Now my wife, and truly supportive, right? So that's the rock star. The other thing is just having the balls. It's not easy to go to a market, and it's not leaving the US and going to a Canada or to a London or to an Australia where it's all English speaking, culturally similar.
Right.
You're going to Vietnam, right? You're going to Thailand, and you're trying to go there to develop relationships with new factories where they're already apprehensive. They're trying to take advantage or whatever they're trying to do. So you got to have the balls to just go out there and make it work or fail. And then obviously economically, you got to try to make this work as well. So it's, the recap, the foundation, you got to have the balls, right? The
Right.
confidence, for a better term of putting that. And then you got to have the finances to do that. Then here's the other thing. Going into this, you don't know politically what president is in office now, what elections are taking place,
Right.
what vendettas they have, because during the course of the last 6 years, we've seen governments change, tariffs come into place where I was importing this for $1. The next day it's $1.33 on every dollar, and it removes that, which then transitions you to say, hey, do we start manufacturing locally? Can we start doing that? Because I do want to build in this country.
Right.
But we've had so many barriers. So there's so many different things. Internationally, it's always changing. There's a war that started now in Ukraine.
I know.
How is that going to?
Right. So you have to stay on top of your international affairs. I mean, it's because it's easy for some people, even maybe I'm across the country here in the US, but it's pretty easy. I mean, we're doing real estate transactions. I don't, we're closing a deal in Covington, Georgia today. It's not that much different than Houston, Texas, where I'm at. I mean, but you're dealing with such different such different ways of culture and living.
Yes.
What's as far as your actual dealings with your the people that you're working with on doing your business deals, what are maybe the biggest hurdles? Is it communication? Is it cultural differences? What are the things that that you have to kind of overcome on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So the communication's key. We were fortunate early on. So we were pulled internationally, and this is always I'll give you an example. One of my accounts was California Pizza Kitchen, right? It's a restaurant chain here in the US.
Right.
I think like 600 locations. They were opening some locations in the Middle East, Southeast Asia. I started supplying them there. So it started with an American company, like-minded, right? But then you go to these markets, and now I have to work with the local guy in Malaysia. So
Right.
communication's key. Negotiation is key. It's incredible. And this isn't taken away from any countries around the world. I'm actually a Greek and Canadian citizen and newly American citizen. The United States, there's no country like the United States. Like if you're born here, you oftentimes maybe don't realize it. The foundation and what is set up here, it doesn't matter if you're in Texas dealing with Washington, dealing with whatever. The foundation and the framework that's set up here is like no other. And the more I deal outside of the country, the more I appreciate truly what this country provides. It's on another level, so communication's key. Greece, I've been working in Greece over 15 years, and they have a newer government right now that's very business friendly, stepping away from the whole old socialist. Right now, I'm setting up my first office in Greece, even though I've been working there for 15 years, because geopolitically things have changed and shifted, and it makes sense. So it's the communication, but if you're not finding your local counterpart in that market, it never works. So we always try to find that person that's our catalyst in that market to set the office up with, communicate, and then be our feet on the street.
That's smart, man. And it's, you know, obviously it's, there's a saying, it's who, not how. So it sounds like it's kind of, you know, who can I connect with that is already there that can kind of help facilitate some of this stuff versus trying to figure it out all on your own, which is, you know, it's hard enough to do that, you know, in your own backyard, but let alone across the, you know, across the world.
Absolutely.
What does your team look like? I mean, is it, obviously you're doing a lot of business, you're all over the place. What kind of infrastructure with your team that kind of helps you day to day on your operations?
Absolutely. So we founded it, me and my business partner. So just even team we'll talk about, but if you're going to do partnerships with anyone, I've been burned in the past.
Yep.
My experience and advice is you always have to team up with someone who's like-minded, obviously, but also has a similar economic background, family background. So it's an even playing field, right? I have that with my business partner. It's the most amazing relationship because we're similar in age, similar with children, age gaps, and we're coming from the same background versus this guy's the money investment guy. You're never going to align.
Yeah.
So we founded our company in New York. And once we founded it, decided I'm going to move to the West Coast. My wife's from here. We're going to set up our footprint here. So when we first launched, it was New York, LA, and our New York office is the home office where we have, you know, accounting, financing, engineering, and project management. Out here in California, where I'm at, it's warehousing, marketing, sales, support. But from day one, we've established just strategically, we wanted to be a 24/7 operation because our clients are everywhere. We didn't want to be, hey, it's 5:05, guys. Sorry, we can't respond.
Right.
So we started developing offices in markets that would carry a 24-hour set, 6.5 days a week coverage. So we said, okay, let's look at Argentina, similar time zone with New York, great talent. Then we started going towards the UK. Then we started going towards, you know, a little more east in Europe, in Athens, which covers the 7 hours. Then we opened up in Shanghai, which covers that. And then we started going a little backwards. So we're located in all our satellite offices. We have anywhere from 2 to 4, 2 to 5 key employees that design, marketing, engineering, product engineering, lighting engineers. So we've set that up. So up until Saturday, we're covered 6 days a week, just around the clock. And then we have our factories that we have ownership in China, but then we also use component suppliers. So our network, our core company is fewer than 50 people around the world. But when you start adding our factories and subcontractors, it's in the hundreds.
Wow. That's awesome, man. But I think that's the only way you can do it to make it really successful and not kind of lose your grip of the business, is having really key people in each location.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's like the only way. People are the X factor 100%. I mean, so when it comes to finding this talent, I mean, how do you, I mean, that has to be tough, right? Finding key talent in these different markets across the world. What is some of your ways strategically to be able to help do that?
Yeah. And by the way, Blake, you're excellent at like navigating and doing this. You're really good at.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always hard. The toughest part is the busier you get, right? And we had a chat before we started this episode.
Yeah.
Is you know, you think it's easy to find the right person, but it's when they're not the right person, and then you have to go through the process and part ways. It's just that energy that's just wasted, right?
Yeah.
So the one of the hardest positions for us to hire, the simple ones are, you know, the financing, anything that's very black and white. You either know this or you don't. Is fine. The biggest challenge for hiring for us has been that American mindset and replicating that outside of the United States.
Wow.
Again, not saying Americans are better or worse, but we here in the States, it's like, go, go, go. We're going to do this round the clock energy. And then you start going to other countries that have different structure and whoop, I got my 40 days vacation this year and I got this and I got that. That's always been a challenge and will continue to be, because we're trying to merge cultures. When someone's sitting at a desk in this country and we're here, it's always going to be like that. So we always tap into the top 2 to 3 websites, like, you know, Career Builder locally for whatever those markets are. And we'll spend the money there to try to attract the right talent. But we've been fortunate enough, just word of mouth too. So I'm connected with a lot of influential people in certain markets, whether it's a diplomat or someone, and they always know the right outlets to go and say, hey, you want to find the right lighting designer or engineer, why don't you talk to my buddy who's the professor at the school? So we've organically been able to do that. And then Athens will be our second biggest hiring effort outside of China and New York. In China, we have a big office, and by the end of next month, 2 months, we're going to have 10 people in that office. And we're already at 4 or 5, and I'm going to be there in a couple of days to finish up some interviews. And it's a challenge, right? But you have the right person. I have the best managing director for the European office who's going to coordinate that, who takes the load off me having to micromanage that, and just finding the right stuff. It's no different. It's just throw in the cultural aspect.
Yep.
Which we even see it here, Blake.
Yeah.
Moving from New York to California, that's a cultural difference as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you see it in Houston. Like, tell me, like, where do you see certain cultural differences, even within our own country?
Well, 100%. I mean, and that's when we went nationwide in our real estate last March. And so before that, I was in Houston and San Antonio. And San Antonio is like 3 hours from Houston. So it's basically the same thing, right? I mean, it's the same type of market, same type of culture with people and how they work. But yeah, not only is real estate different across the country, which I had to learn, but also just the way people communicate and the way people work. I mean, if we're doing a deal, in Jersey, and we've done that, it's a different speed, it's a different vibe, right? The seller expects maybe more communication, faster communication, you're doing a deal in Alabama, man, we may not, it's a slower speed, right? I mean, I remember we had this one deal in Alabama, and we actually screwed up. We forgot, we did the contract, we sent over to the title company, and we had so many contracts going at the same time, we actually lost sight of it and didn't reach out to the seller. 2 months go by, and the seller was not only cool, he didn't even reach out, and we finally.
Can you imagine in another? Yeah.
No, you know what I mean. So it's just like there's different different areas. More, your metro areas are gonna be different. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine the difference here in the country, but then you take it out worldwide. I mean, it's so many different variables. Keeping people happy, you're keeping your customers happy, keeping your employees happy. There's all these different moving pieces. You spoke about the alignment with your business partner. What is kind of his role? How does he sort of support you in your operation?
Great. Yeah, great. We always joke about this. Like, we talk more to each other than to our own spouses, and we love our spouses.
It's a marriage, man. It's a marriage. Yeah.
No, it's a marriage. And I'll tell you what, usually they say marriages or whatever unions fail when there's money problems, right? They say like that's the root of a lot. So me and my business partner in 2020 went through the worst financial situation we've ever been in the history of our company. If the country's not building, we're not selling our products, right? It's very simple like that. So it was very bad. And during that time, that toughest time, we even came together, and it's like, no, we're in this, we're going to do it. We're going to find a way. And that just solidified, like, we're in this together. So we align. He is brilliant on the technical side. He's got his master's in lighting. He understands the technology on why the LED diode does this and that.
Right.
So he's great on that side. And then my side is the strategy. What markets are we going to go into? Why, the clients. So we've married that. And where I lack, he's excellent. Where he lacks, I'm good. And we made it work like that. And then anywhere else where we're not good, just hire the right people to support it. But it's all hands on deck. And look, it's different. My background, I come from the restaurant industry. If the cook didn't show up, you jump in the kitchen. If the waiter's not there, you go in. His background, he grew up in corporate America. His dad worked for a Fortune 100 company, and it's different. So to come together, and make that work, it's two different worlds, but it's the most beautiful business partnership I've been in so far. And we've been over 10 years, we've known each other. So it's a big deal.
That's pretty awesome, man, because, they say obviously the divorce rate is high, but I feel like a lot of business partnerships don't last either, because like you said, there's a misalignment, there's a miscommunication. And yeah, I mean, outside of your marriage, that's probably the most, your marriage and your kids, that's probably the most important relationship that there is.
Absolutely. And like, I see stuff with my business partner where I'm like, man, I should apply that in my personal life. Like I'm asking for his opinion on stuff that, not that I don't need it because of an ego. It's just like, no, I know this is what we need to do. We're going to do it. But you show that respect on certain things and vice versa. Hey, George, what do you think about this?
Right.
Where it's like, yeah, you know what? I should probably do that more, even in my own house with my wife, and engage more. And so it's learning, and by no means have I mastered it. We're working on it daily, right? With business. Yeah. But if you can survive the worst of the worst, hopefully you guys can do good when, we're climbing right now.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Let's go into maybe some intangibles. You're successful, you're international, obviously you have a great support system with your family and your wife and your children. What are some of the behind the scenes stuff that George does to kind of position himself to where he's showing up as, the best version of yourself every day? What are maybe some mindset stuff, that you can kind of tap into?
Yeah. So the mindset, I'm trying, I guess, religion wise, right? I grew up Christian. I'm a proud Christian. I'm trying to re-engage more there because it hasn't been.
Me too. Yeah.
And I have no shame in saying that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not perfect.
I'm not perfect by any means, but I know growing up, the church was always associated with culture with us, and you just did it procedural. And the older I get, I'm like, no, you know what? There's more there. So that's just a personal thing that I need to pursue, and not just for me, but for my kids. So that's one thing. The mindset for me is, kids first. They've taken away my free time, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but if I wasn't working before, then I was traveling and, doing that. So the kids have helped me realign, being able to disconnect from this, right? Because it's so easy, even if you're with your spouse or with friends or with whatever. My biggest pet peeve is sitting at a table with someone and it's just nonstop when it's not needed. Like if you can't disconnect for 45 minutes to grab a bite of a meal,
right?
If your kids and everyone that matters is right there, it's like disconnecting. So mentally, no phones in the room, have stopped. I won't look at my phone between certain hours because then you just get sucked in. And mine's around the clock. When I'm sleeping, China's awake, India's awake, and all this. So that's that. And then I've started, I haven't been the best at reading books since I've started this company, but I'm cheating and I'm using Audible a lot to try to stay current. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's cheating and people listening to the book. Yeah. But it's better than nothing. So there's I try to stay current with there, but by no means am I, it should be part of any book club. I see what other people are reading. I'm like, I should be doing more, but at a minimum, on a long flight, I'm catching up on a few books and trying to get development inspired through there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, at the end of the day, it's having, good relationships with your family, and then in the spiritual aspect, and I'm going through the same thing. Kind of saying that grew up in the church. My family was kind of in and out of the church or whatever, but I don't know if it was maybe skepticism or whatever, but in my 20s, I was like, it's so formal. It's, but then as you get older, I'm 37 now. And, I have a 14-year-old son and a wife and a family. You're like, you see things different. You look at the values and you're like, wow, okay, now I get it. And that's really, really important. And
so true.
And so for me, I actually have a personal coach. He kind of helps me with my productivity and business and, my mindset and stuff. And
let me ask you. So the personal coaches, and I see a lot of successful people, a lot of people tapping into that. So what do you define as a personal coach versus a mentor? Because I'm genuinely, is a mentor different? Is it's like, explain to me. And then when and why did you seek?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. So for me, this is just my experience.
Yep.
God has put, so to me, a mentor is someone that comes into your life and it's a little bit more organic, and
Yep.
it's someone that kind of helps you unleash a skill or some potential that you may not even know that you have, right? And kind of sees a little bit of a version of yourself further down the road. And I've been very fortunate. I've had really good people come into my life at the most perfect timing, and it wasn't always easy. Sometimes I had to get checked with certain things, and especially
Sure.
growing up. But so to me, this is just my definition. To me, a mentor is kind of someone that kind of comes in your life organically, you're drawn to, and you can see maybe a little bit of yourself in them, and they can see a little bit of themselves in you, but you're in different phases, right? So it's like you're kind of like pretty far apart. A coach to me is someone that is maybe a little bit more intentional, and it's someone like, okay, hey, I want to hire this person, or I'm going to, even if you don't hire them, however you do it, I'm going to have this person coach me and keep me accountable to help me develop my skills and my sales or my business or my mindset or my relationships or whatever it is. And it's a little bit more of an intentional. It may not be as organic or as, hey, I want to be like this person. The coach
Sure.
is more of a facilitator, a messenger,
So Blake, on that, did you, like, when you found your coach today, did you interview others? And then if you get one, or you hire, or you start working with someone, do you look at them and say, well, where are they in their life and career? Because I'm not going to
100%.
listen to someone like, if this guy with a belly is going to teach me to have a six pack, I'm not
Right.
going to listen to him. Like, how do you go through that?
110%, man. And so for me, there's a few people in the marketplace that are high performance coaches or business coaches, and one of them is a guy named Brendan Bouchard. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brendan Bouchard, but he's and you can I'll send you his information, but
Okay.
he's coached like Usher, and he's done stuff with Oprah. He's high level guy. Well, he has a program that has I think like 16 coaches under him.
Okay.
And so I like his style. His style was always I feel like I kind of had a similar vibe. He's about positive energy and being positive, but he's also tough, and it's like, hey, you got to be firm. You got to be able to get shit done. And it's like just this good balance.
Awesome.
And I really like his mindset. So I actually reached out to them, and then I was like, hey, I'm interested in doing some coaching. And then I did a few interviews. They have a process. They sent me through some interviews, and they said, hey, these few people might be your best fit. You interview them, and then you just kind of pick the person that you want to roll with, right?
And let me ask you, and I think it's good for the viewers too,
Yeah.
not to flip the script on you,
Yeah.
but depending on your background and where you're at, even financially, can you sit there and say, you know what, I only have this budget a month, and it falls in a bucket of what type of coaches I could get? Like, how does that work? Because your average person can't go and afford $10,000 a month to have access to the greatest person. How does that work?
Well, so for me, philosophically, I believe in reaping what you sow, right? So for me, I kind of have I look at it from sort of a spiritual perspective. When I'm investing in coaching or personal development, I'm sowing into myself. I'm planting good seed, right? And if I can't do that, then there's an issue, right? So I may not be able to do $1,000 a month to 10,000 or whatever, or whoever it is, but I can do something.
Yep.
And so for me, how I started off is I started with where I could. Like, okay, I can't afford these crazy expensive coaches, but what I can afford is to go buy a book. And
that's great advice. Yeah.
Right. I could do that. I could afford to go and take this online course for $100, and obviously it has to be relevant to what you're doing, and information has to be connected to what you're trying to do. I don't, one thing about me is I don't believe in misalignment with your information. For me, it's always input equals output. So if my goals and my objectives are to grow a business and to be financially successful, 80% of the information that I need to be paying attention to needs to be aligned with that, and I think one of the biggest challenges that people have is they have these goals like, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to, grow a business, or I want to be good at sales, but then their information that they're taking in, or even their education, doesn't even align with that.
Right.
So
Right.
it's to me, it's just being strategic. You don't have to hire someone, you don't have to hire Tony Robbins and pay $3 million a month. I mean, you can literally start where you are.
Yep.
And I took baby steps. I mean, I took baby steps, and then I have a coach now that it's not cheap, but it's not beyond where I'm at. So it makes sense,
I guess just last question for you on
Yeah.
that. When you started like full on after the books and actually
Yep.
started working with a coach to wherever you're at, and every case is different depending on your motivation and business and whatever. But like, how soon can you see results just in your own mindset and then financially? Like,
Yeah.
like for you personally, have you seen results already? Even, oh, wow, this is translated financially?
Oh my God, man. So I think it comes mindset first. I think the first things that you see are a better fruit with your thinking, the way you look at things, perspective. So for me, I had a coaching call last night at 6:00, and oftentimes, human nature is like, man, I really don't want to do this. I really am not in the mood to
Yep.
do a coaching call. And then after I do it every time, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Like, I have new insight. It's really what it is for me. It just allows me to become more aware of some things that can help me grow.
Awesome.
And the biggest things are accountability. I feel like if I'm accountable to someone once a week or whatever it is, twice or whatever it is, and I have to show up and I have to discuss what I have been doing in my business, but also it gives me sort of an opportunity to kind of get things out of my head.
Yeah.
And have someone as a sounding board. That in itself is valuable because it allows me to be able to process things better.
Yep.
So I think for me, George, the biggest things that I have seen is coaching has helped me process issues better, have clarity at a faster rate, and then also be able to strategically identify my next moves on helping myself. I mean, for example, I started coaching with this guy under that program last August.
Okay.
And during that coaching, he, one of the questions that came up was, he was like, okay, Blake, you want to, connect more nationally, and you want to get with some power players, and because I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't necessarily taking any action towards that.
Yep.
And so that coaching call, I came up with it, but he holds me accountable. It's like, okay, every week from September through, I think it was end of October, in November, I'm going to connect with 2 people every week. And you were one of them, right? And
Yeah.
so just in that, George, now all those
That's
connections have been fruitful, but
Yep.
some of them have really been awesome.
Absolutely. And look,
you know.
it's an hour conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
I learned something more about you, vice versa.
Yeah,
Next time I'm in Texas, like, let's grab a coffee, let's grab a drink. Let's
absolutely,
see
man.
where it can align 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other thing, I was talking with a friend who's a lobbyist, which you can only say in this country, but he's a senior advisor. And he was saying just that. And I agree. Like, everyone tries to make a connection thinking, where am I going to capitalize right away?
Yep.
This organically. Hey, we had
That's
a chat
it.
today. Maybe 2 years from now, something else could come.
Absolutely.
Maybe it could happen in a week, but it's just, people are too hungry nowadays, and
Yep.
we're forcing a lot of stuff. So I love that approach. And the beginning of the year, I even told myself, I'm like, George, reach out. Mine was like once a week, new type of business development opportunity where I wasn't doing last year because we were just so busy.
Absolutely.
And busy, the term busy is the root of, everyone thinks they're busier than the next person. And it's not a competition, right? And it's the biggest excuse. I'm too busy to go to the gym, too busy to do this. I'm too busy to do dating.
Yeah.
Like, it's a poisonous word,
It's priorities, and where your values line, whatever your values are is where your priorities are, and where your actions and where your time is,
For sure.
and I'm just a big believer in alignment. And so for me, I just think I think coaching will help you just help somebody be in alignment, but it's not the end all be all. And I think just personal accountability, but the more clarity that you can have and the more you can be in align with your values, which I know it sounds like that you are, and I do the best that I can, where it's like every week, every Sunday, I write out my calendar for the week, and my values, the things that are priorities, which is my business, my family, my health, my fitness,
Absolutely.
my spiritual relationship with God. I mean, I put those on the calendar first,
Yep.
and because that, if you don't do that, then you're going to find, like you were saying, you're always going to be too busy. You're always going to
Yep.
let something drag you around and take you off, from what's important to you. So yeah, man, I think we live in this, the social media world, which is really, really cool, because obviously we connected that way. And
Yep.
I think if you use it intentionally, but like you said, like not from a place of what can I get, but for me, it's, I just want to connect with people that number one, I can be inspired by. I can have mental stimulation, inspiration from them, and then number two, that are like-minded, that are going after similar things. They don't have to be the same industry, but just
Absolutely.
people that are hungry for growth, positivity, and success. If I can connect with that, man, it doesn't matter if you're selling surfboards or it doesn't matter.
Amen.
It's,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
It's just that camaraderie, and I think, there's a lot of negativity in the world. So I was like, man, there's a bunch of good people. I just think, you gotta reach out and you gotta connect,
I, and if that's the key takeaway out of anything,
Yeah.
100%. But
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate it. We're going to continue to keep dialogue going,
Yeah,
on my
man.
end, on your end. But this
Yeah.
is awesome, man. And I love what you're doing.
Yeah, George, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, man, to have you on. And I'll connect with you after this. We'll stay
Yep.
connected. But just thanks for being on, man. I'm excited to kind of see your growth, and one day I like to do something international. So you've inspired me to think outside the box. Maybe it's real estate. I don't know. But it's
I
pretty
would
cool.
love to be a part of that, like whatever it is, navigating that, and on the next conversation, we'll talk about the real estate effort that I did in Europe
Absolutely.
and the TV show. And there's a lot, but let's definitely stay connected.
Awesome. Thanks, George. Well, I appreciate it, brother. Have a good rest of your week.
You too, my man.
Oh,
Take care.
man. Thanks.
Yep.